Hey there, it's Tia Torres with another episode of Wild Instincts. So I know in the past few episodes we've had some fun. I've talked to you about, some of the mischief I've gotten myself into, but truth be told, my time filming The Jungle Book in Sri Lanka was so much more than just crazy antics. I say this all the time, so I'm going to do it again. Everything I know about training dogs, I learned from being in Sri Lanka and working with those type of animals. And I mean, it was like a crash course in animal training. In that 1 year between prepping back in California to traveling to Sri Lanka, we're talking it was a good year or so working with these type of animals. And it's an experience that I wish every dog trainer could go through, because you learn such a respect. You learn such an appreciation when working with these animals that, outweigh you by 10 times and could frankly kill you. you know, it's so easy for these macho alpha dog trainers to talk about how they grab a dog by the scruff and slam it on the ground. And I'm like, you're a 200-pound man and the dog weighs 40 pounds. Wow. Aren't you the man's man? Or you put a muzzle on a dog and you choke it up with a leash, and hang it in the air and say, you got to show him who's boss. Aren't you the manly man? Now do that to a 700-pound male Bengal tiger. How about that? Or how about do it to a 10-year-old matured male chimpanzee who could rip your arms off out of their sockets? Yeah, let's see you do it to them. So to watch these trainers, and don't get me wrong, not all of them were good trainers, because we did have other animal companies there. Like the people that came with the primates, they were, the orangutans and the chimps were a different company than the company I was working with. Not all trainers are good, but for the most part, the people I worked with were. And I am so grateful and thankful that I got to work with some amazing people who taught me the right way, the right way to build relationships, the right way to gain trust from animals that necessarily, would trust you out in the wild. Now, speaking of that, let me touch on one thing. The McMillan's animals were treated so good. Okay, they didn't live in these big, huge 1-acre enclosures. They were in big areas with swimming pools and, things like that. And yes, most of them were purchased for the reason of using them for film work, but they took amazing care. Amazing. Okay. And when we would do, and I'm getting sidetracked for a second, when we would do public or private events where we're doing like educational or whatever, I'll never forget this one time. Scott had 2 of the bears with him at an exhibit, and he actually brought their swimming pool. Their swimming pool was one of those huge silver metal livestock watering troughs that you see at Tractor Supply. I mean, the things are huge. Okay, they're the big circular things. And because it was going to be a hot day, he didn't want the bears to get hot. So he brought their swimming pool. I mean, this guy was so good to those bears. And they're in there, there's 2 of them, and they're in there playing in the water, and they're splashing around and having the time of their life. While he's feeding them marshmallows, apples, And this lady walks by with her kid, and she says, those poor animals. She goes, they belong in the wild. They would be so much happier. And Scott turns to her and he goes, okay, first of all, they've never lived in the wild. So they don't even know what the wild is. Okay. Secondly, do they look miserable to you? Because in the wild, they would have to be hunting for their food, fighting off other predators, dealing with the climate and Mother Nature. He goes, with me, they're spoiled. They get the best of the best. And he was right for his situation. I understand where she's coming from, but with the McMillan's animals, it did not apply because they were so well cared for. They didn't know that, oh, well, my ancestors ran in the jungles of Africa or wherever. Yeah, fighting for your life. So it was so great to see that these animals were so happy and so well taken care of. And again, I was taught patience, and to really, you had to earn their respect. You had to earn their trust, because let's face it, again, these animals could kill you at any moment, but they didn't, because they chose not to. Not because they were scared of us, because they chose not to. And when we were working on location in Sri Lanka, there were times when we had to work the bear, the leopard, or the tiger, but mainly it was Mowgli's crew. So Mowgli always had a bear, Baloo, Bagheera the leopard, the black leopard, and one of the wolf dogs with him. And so there were times that we had to work them in the same scene. And because they weren't necessarily raised together, obviously, but they were worked around each other and taught that, hey, you guys are pals. We're not here. No one's going to hurt nobody. And we didn't let them loose together, but they got comfortable with each other. And then you throw in this little boy, the boy who played Mowgli. Oh my God. This kid was like the doppelganger from the Mowgli character, like the real life Mowgli. And this kid was so amazing. He was so comfortable with the animals. What a trooper. We're out there in this heat and this humidity, and he's running around the jungle barefoot like Mowgli did. Just a good kid. And to watch it all work so harmoniously together, it's something that I'll never be able to duplicate. And I wish anybody getting into the dog training business could start like that. Because by the time I started working with dogs, I worked my way down, and I don't mean down as far as the respect level. I mean down as far as like the size. I'm like, oh, well, this is pretty easy. You guys are little. One of the cool things that I was taught early on was like a give and take. You want something from them, you got to give them something in return. And that was especially true with the monkeys and the primates. There was a particular instance where the monkey handlers, and now the monkey handlers and the primate handlers were different. Primates, I'm talking chimpanzees and orangutans. The monkeys, I'm talking about the capuchin monkeys that they use, and they use some Reese monkeys. So we were practicing one day, just doing some little, for a scene coming up. And one of the trainers was a Reese monkey. Her name was Susie. Oh my God, I remember her name. Susie, the monkey. And they were like teaching her to go to a mark, climb up that tree, Susie come. And I'm just sitting there minding my own business watching. And Susie, she broke her concentration. And she jumped off her mark and just ran at me with a vengeance. And the trainer was like, Susie, stop. And she didn't stop. I mean, shit happens, right? And she ran up on me, and she got right in front of me. And a Reese monkey is bigger than a capuchin, smaller than a chimp, but they ain't tiny. And their canines are huge, like as big as a big dog. She ran up on me and she saw I had a gold necklace or something. I don't even know, maybe Jeffrey gave it to me. I don't remember. But she grabbed a hold of that necklace and got in my face and just showed her teeth. Now, to the onlooker, it looked like they were smiling. And I was taught early on, they ain't smiling. She's challenging you. And as he's walking towards me, he goes, don't move, don't move, don't move. He goes, and I'm like, okay. And he goes, and he got there. And when he got close enough to me, he goes, Tia, you need to challenge her, like not physically. And he goes, you need to tell her, no, like you mean it. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm going to rip my face off. And I just went, Susie, no, Susie, no. And she was like, she let go of the necklace. And then Chad and I think Marissa was the other trainer. I'm like, Susie, get over here. It was like a child, handling a child. Get your ass over here. So it was interesting, the dynamics, that because the monkeys and the primates being so close to human behavior, it's like you would do with a child. No. But they did teach me afterwards. They said, here's the thing. Let's say that had been a wild monkey. Because they were everywhere. They were everywhere. They were like stray cats. Okay. He said, let me teach you something with the wild monkeys. If this ever happens and we're out here working, if that happens again with a wild monkey, don't challenge it like you just did with Susie, because she understands us. He goes, if all possible, you need to find something to trade off. You get a wild monkey, grab a hold of your hair, something else, you find something to give that monkey instead. Just do the trade-off. Get them interested in something else. He goes, I don't care what you have. Something. And it was just interesting because learning how close the monkeys and the primates, again, were to human behavior, they were deciphering the difference between working with a monkey that had been raised with humans as opposed to working with them or dealing with a monkey that had not. So these are the kind of cool things we learned. And I ended up using that in my later years when working with actually there was a particular situation, with one of our wolf dogs. Actually one that was on the our TV show, Freya, a black wolf dog. And she has a lot of wolf in her. And, she got a hold of something one day and was not letting go. And it was a fanny pack. And, it was, she was not letting go of it, and it was attached to a person. And, I was not about to unclip the fanny pack and let her run off with it. So I had to find something to trade out. And I remember that back from my days in Sri Lanka. So there were so many things to learn, with this experience, too many to count. And I'm hoping to be able to resurrect all of them and put them here in this podcast, because everything I learned, I was able to transfer into my, my dog training, abilities. Whew. That took a lot of energy out of me. I feel very passionate telling that story. All right. Well, you know what they say. Always stay wild and follow your instincts.